breaking news from Real America's Voice.
We are back with breaking news where you're seeing reports that Israel launched a strike against Hamas leadership in Qatar. The IDF says it was targeting senior leadership there for Hamas. We, of course, will have more updates as they come in. This is still a developing story. But again, Israel has struck Qatar, specifically Doha, trying to target Hamas leadership that is there in Qatar. Again, a developing story that we'll continue to update for you. All right, let's get things over to Dr. G now for our political pulse.
All right, welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm Dr. G. Thanks for joining us this morning. We invite you to hop in our conversation on YouTube, Getter, and Rumble. Time now to take the political pulse of America, the beat today. Where do our rights actually come from? Well, Virginia Senator Tim Kaine says they come from government. But Texas Senator Ted Cruz had to educate him on the words of our founding fathers. Take a listen.
The notion that rights don't come from laws and don't come from the government, but come from the creator, that's what the Iranian government believes. So the statement that our rights do not come from our laws or our governments is extremely troubling.
So Senator Kaine said in this hearing that he found it a radical and dangerous notion that you would say our rights came from God and not from government. I just walked into the hearing as he was saying that, and I almost fell out of my chair because that radical and dangerous notion, in his words, is literally the founding principle upon which the United States of America was created.
President Trump then weighed in and said Kaine should be ashamed of himself for his remarks. Take a look.
The need for this commission has never been more clear than it was last week when the ineffectual senator from Virginia, a man named Tim Kaine, stated that the notion our rights come from our creator is, quote, extremely troubling to him. Very troubling. Isn't it troubling? Isn't that terrible, though? How he would say something like that, and advocated really by a totalitarian regime. This is what they say. But as everyone in this room understands, it is tyrants who are denying our rights and the rights that come from God. And it's this Declaration of Independence that proclaims we're endowed by our Creator with the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
For more, let's bring in the host of America's Voice Live, Steve Gruber. Steve, how on earth, you tell me this, how on earth is someone elected as many times as Tim Kaine and does not understand the most foundational concept of our country? Should we have a U.S. constitutional and foundational test before someone can assume office?
Yeah, really.
You would think. Look, how old were you, honestly, when you learned about the Constitution and the pursuit of happiness? And we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. They're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. And among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their powers, their just powers, from the consent of the governed by their Creator. I mean, maybe I should send him this. I keep a copy of the Constitution on my desk every day, so I could reach over and say, hey, he said what? Wait a second. It says right here. I think we should share that with my friends in Congress.
Yeah.
And you see this all the time. You see people, well, the Constitution says this or that. I'm thinking, you've never read the Constitution. People spew nonsense claiming it comes from the Constitution when it has no foundation at all. The separation of church and state being one of the biggest things. You know, the free exercise thereof seems to be a clause that they forget about when it comes to freedom of religion in this country. Freedom of speech is being destroyed by our friends all over Europe right now. We need to defend this document more than ever before. This document, this Constitution of these United States must be defended more today than at any point in my life. Yes, the freedom of speech is under attack. Yes, the freedom to keep and bear arms is under attack. The freedom of expression is under attack. The freedom of religion is under attack. Every place you look, and it's under attack predominantly by one political party, which becomes more radicalized every single day because they're not even traditional liberals anymore. They're socialists. They're communists. They're anarchists. This document, my friends, needs to be defended every single day. I think Tim Kaine, I should autograph it and mail it to him. Maybe we all should. And say, Senator, I'm not sure where you went to fifth grade, but where I went to fifth grade, we already knew all of these things by the time we got there. So it's appalling that he's that uneducated, that he would compare the United States of America to some rogue nation. It is appalling, just the word that comes to mind for me, guys. Just appalling.
Steve, it is appalling, but are you really surprised? And
No.
Personally, not to editorialize here, this to me isn't just a rejection of the Constitution. It's also a common rejection of God that we've seen pretty consistently within the Democrat Party, it seems to me.
I agree with you on that, 100%. It's also, this document, rejected by judges across this great country of ours with more regularity than ever before.
Yes.
They routinely ignore the Constitution. They don't care. They rule against President Trump, for example, on a number of things and other things that should be clear common sense and are rooted in this Constitution, which I continue to hold up because people need to read it. Everybody needs a copy of this on their desk. Refresh yourselves. Maybe there should be a refresher course on the Constitution every 5 or 10 years or so. You know, when you meet people that have come into this country legally, and I meet a lot of them, different places you travel, you meet people who come into this country legally. They know more about the Constitution than does Senator Tim Kaine. They do because they took time to actually read the document. And he's not the only offender. There's other members of Congress that have no idea what's written here. None. And if they do know, sadly, they don't seem to care much about it, which I don't know which is worse, not knowing or not caring, or both are equally destructive.
Well,
but I go back to the judges that just don't know nothing about it. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, no, I think a big part of the problem here is that Tim Kaine wears his, quote, faith on his sleeve. I mean, that's his calling card.
Yeah.
I've covered Tim Kaine for over 20 years, and that's his thing. That's his shtick, right? That he talks about his faith. And the fact that a man like that would muddy the waters, totally distort and not even fabricate, but tell untruths like that. That is dangerous for people that aren't paying attention to this type of stuff, and they'll start to believe a, quote, man of faith. That is ridiculous what he's doing. By the way, speaking of faith, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was just going to say faith is one thing, relationship is something completely different. And those sorts of statements, to me, speak to a lack of relationship. Just my thoughts. I'll sit back now. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, we're getting ready for Tom Homan, the Border Czar, to potentially approach the mics there at the White House. We monitor things left and right. I monitor my 401k, but I also monitor Tom Homan walking. And there we go. We're looking at this live. Let's see if he comes to the microphone. Oh, he looks like he's coming straight up. Let's listen in, everybody.
Good morning, Mark Stone from Sky News. We've spent the past couple of weeks in and around Washington, D.C., neighborhoods like Mount Pleasant, where we've been talking to the Latino community. And one thing that we've discovered is that there are a lot of very frightened people there. Mums, dads, kids, grandparents who are too frightened to leave their home. A lot of them are illegally here. I want to know from you what your plan is, because these are people who have been enabled by America to be here.
Enabled by America. What does that mean?
Well, I'll tell you what it means, sir. It means that they have healthcare, they have ID cards that they can drive, they have driving licenses, they pay tax, they have jobs, and so over a period of a long time, America has kind of welcomed them and enabled them to be here. And because of a change of policy, which we all understand, are you now saying that all of them must leave and that you will round them up and detain them?
Well, they cheated the system, right? Because there's millions of people standing in line, taking their tests, doing their background investigation, paying their fees to be part of the greatest nation on earth. You're talking about people that cheated the system. No, it's not okay to be in this country illegally. Now, let me be clear. President Trump's been clear. We're going to prioritize public safety threats and national security threats, and data shows us exactly what we're doing. But if you want me to sit here and bless someone being here illegal, I'm not going to do that because they cheated the system. What they should do is take advantage of the CBP Home app and make arrangements, put their affairs together, and leave. Because that'll leave them an opportunity to come back under a legal program. For instance, if they have a U.S. citizen child, the U.S. citizen child can petition for them someday if they turn 18. Do the right thing and take the CBP Home app and do the right thing. Come back to this country legally.
So what would you say to the 30-year-old mother that we've spoken to from Mexico, been here 16 years, here illegally, but pays her taxes, lives her life here, and as I say, has been enabled by America to be here. What would you say to her? She hasn't left her home for over 2 weeks now. She can't take her own children to school in the neighborhood because she is so frightened of being rounded up by ICE agents.
Well, bottom line is, I just said we're prioritizing public safety threats and national security threats. We're not out sweeping neighborhoods. We're not out looking for non-criminals. Now, if we run into a non-criminal during these operations, they're absolutely going to be taken in custody, because we're not going to do what the last Biden administration did and tell ICE you can't enforce immigration law. Let me explain to you why we have the most secure border in the nation's history today. It's because of President Trump's executive orders. First of all, it's because the men and women of Border Patrol are finally doing their job. And one of the reasons we have the most secure border in the nation's history, which gives us the highest national security we've ever had, because now we know who's coming and what's coming and so forth, it's because of what ICE is doing. We're sending a message to the whole world. There are consequences for violating our laws. You're asking me to tell ICE, don't enforce the law. Should DEA enforce their laws? Should FBI enforce their laws? Should ATF enforce their laws? ICE is going to enforce the laws of what President Trump got elected for, and that's what we're doing.
And lastly, can I just
yes,
say...
ma'am.
Is that ICE ERO doesn't have to fill out worksheets ahead of ops anymore. Can you confirm that? And how did it square?
I'm not aware of that. I'll have to run that down. I'm not aware of that.
Okay, and can you give an update on Chicago? How many arrests were made since?
I haven't looked at the numbers this morning. I went straight to the tent here, so I look at the numbers every morning. I have not looked at the numbers yet this morning. I looked at them, so I don't know. I know that I just read off on a show I just did of 4 serious people that were arrested in Chicago. I don't know if let me tell you what's happened in Boston. Governor Healy got on TV this morning talking about ICE doing operations at churches, which is a bold-faced lie. 4 people out of many we arrested in Boston the last few days. Victor Gomez Perez, a 33-year-old criminal alien from Guatemala, with charges for aggravated rape, assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, indecent assault and battery on a victim 14 years or older, assault and battery on a police officer, and a conviction for assault. They arrested Kelly Espinosa Viana, a 34-year-old criminal alien from Colombia, with charges of aggravated assault on a pregnant victim. They arrested Joshua Gonzalez Baez, a 23-year-old criminal alien from Dominican Republic, with pending charges for trafficking heroin, morphine, opium, resisting arrest by an officer, disorderly conduct, and drug distribution. They arrested Samuel Barrera, a 20-year-old criminal illegal alien from Guatemala, with pending charges for assault and battery on a child. This is what ICE is doing across the country. They're targeting the worst of the worst, and they're making this country safe again. President Trump promised the American people he'd make this country safe again. Every public safety threat, every national security threat that ICE is taking on the street makes that community safer. Shame on Governor Healy and Mayor Wu. Shame on both of them. They should be calling the White House thanking President Trump, thanking ICE for making their communities safer. But instead, they get on national TV and lie about ICE and make these accusations that it is a big part of the reason why there's a 1,000% increase on assaults on ICE agents. Facts matter. And that's why I stop here every day and talk to you all to get the facts out there. The men and women of ICE, they're mothers and fathers too. They don't hang their heart on a hook when they come to work every day. They put themselves in harm's way to go look for the worst of the worst. And we got hateful rhetoric not only coming from governors and mayors who are pushing a false narrative, but members of Congress who are comparing them to terrorists and Nazis. And bottom line is, if ICE is Nazis for enforcing immigration law, what's that make them? They wrote the law. ICE isn't making this up. They're enforcing laws enacted by Congress that they're funded to do. It's the same thing we've done for decades. I started in 1984. The difference is the last 4 years, there was no immigration enforcement. ICE agents were told not to enforce law. Border Patrol agents were processing people and releasing them in the country, not securing the border. Now that we're back to doing business, back to securing this nation and making this country safe again, people on the left are going nuts. The data speaks for itself. God bless the men and women of ICE and the Border Patrol. I love each and every one of them because they're stepping. How many of you all want to put a gun on your hip and stand on a dirt trail at 3 o'clock in the morning? When a sensor goes off, is it just an illegal alien looking for a better life? Or is it a heavily armed drug smuggler They don't know, but they're going to stand there and take it on. These are brave men and women who love America, and I love each and every one of them.
Mr. Homan, should they say, should they
Go, Mr. Homan.
ICE agents be required to identify
They do.
They don't, though.
They do. The tactical gear has a patch on saying, are they from DEA, FBI, or ICE, HSR, or HSI, or ERO? They have patches. And if they're in a suit like I am, when they go up and arrest somebody, they have creds in their pocket, like I got creds in my pocket. And it'll show the person, here's who I am. Here's my badge. Here's my creds. This is who I am.
So videos when they're shown not identifying themselves or answering questions about that, are those not real?
They will identify themselves in a safety, secure environment. Now, if they're surrounded by a bunch of people who are proposing danger, safety first. Well, I guarantee when someone's arrested and put in detention, they know who arrested them, that person is identifying himself.
Like the Georgia raid. Sorry?
I missed you.
On Monday, the raid in Georgia.
Yeah.
I mean, is the administration in touch with the current government right now? What's sort of the update there? And then also, I mean, how much is the administration doing to work with South Korea, own those permits, and then for other companies that are looking?
Question, but I'm not in the loop on that case. I can just tell you, I'm not in the loop on that one. No, I'm Border Czar. I'm doing a lot. I'm not familiar with that case, but I will say this. I said from day one, we're going to increase worksite enforcement operations. It's a crime to enter this country illegally, and it's also a crime to knowingly hire an illegal alien. They drive down wages, and they put companies that hire U.S. citizens out of business. And I can give you many examples of that. Every day, illegal aliens that are employed by companies undercut their competition that hires illegal aliens. They drive wages down. No one hires an illegal alien out of goodness of their heart. They hire them because they can work them harder, pay them less. Just like the farmers. There's a way a farmer can bring someone on, but they got to pay decent wages, got to provide housing. There's a right way and wrong way to do this, and President Trump demanded we do things the right way.
Can we get some Spanish-speaking surrogates to deliver this message that you're giving, because we have media that refuses to give the correct information and they're giving the misinformation, causing the fear in the communities. Can we get some Spanish surrogates to go ahead and give them the right information so they know exactly what app to go to, so that they can go and do things the legal and the right way and the law and orderly way?
I think we do, but I agree with you. We could expand that, so I'll take that for action.
How does Operation Midway Blitz differ from the raids that you've been conducting in and around Chicago since February?
We got more resources in Chicago. Again, the president wants to make Chicago safe again. And nothing's changing. We're still prioritizing public safety threats and national security threats. It's just we send more resources to sanctuary cities. President Trump said from day one, we're going to prioritize sanctuary cities because that's where the problem is. We know they're releasing public safety threats back in the community every day. We're going to go where the biggest problems are. The biggest problems are sanctuary cities.
What kinds of new resources?
More boots on the ground.
Community members and leaders who are worried about
Profiling. What do you say? Are due process rights being violated?
ICE agents aren't racially profiling. The law says you got to establish reasonable suspicion to detain and question somebody, and I think the men and women, ICE and Border Patrol, are doing exactly that. And I think the Supreme Court disagreed with us in California case. There's a myriad of factors they take into consideration. They learn that in the academy. Every 6 months, ICE agents have a refresher training on Fourth Amendment that gives them the rules around detention, seizure, arrest, questioning, and so forth. They're very well trained. They bring a group of factors together until they establish reasonable suspicion to make an arrest. Like the big story was the jumping on back of Van Home Depot, how they established reasonable suspicion. Were they there when they did surveillance? Were they there when license plate numbers were copied and taken down and tried to build a case on who's hiring these people and where these people came from? Were they there when they run NCIC and III and intelligence data? Were they there when they screened social media data? The men and women of ICE do a good job, and they do it professionally, and they do it with integrity. So I think the Supreme Court agreed with us yesterday. Things are being done the right way.
A few days ago, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, he said on MSNBC that ICE is planning to, quote, invade Chicago. He later shared resources with illegal aliens to help.
10.5 million illegal aliens came to our border, invaded this country, and were illegally released into the United States. And he defines the federal law. Federal law says you come to our border without proper documentation, you shall be detained. Not think about it. Not release them to NGO. You know what happened in the 4 years, which no one talks about? Why did it release millions of people in the United States when there are thousands of empty ICE beds? Why did they do that? Because if you're in ICE detention, you get a hearing within 35, 40 days. 90% lose their case. They simply don't qualify for asylum. They get on an airplane, they get sent home. That's not what they wanted. Release them to an NGO. The hearings are 5, 7, 9 years out if you go through the entire appeal process. What happens then? They're hoping for another Democratic leadership that can award amnesty to millions of people. They sold this country out for future political power. President Trump is enforcing the law. That's one thing no one wants to talk about. ICE isn't making it up. They're enforcing the law. That's what they're doing. Because it hasn't been enforced in 4 years, and everybody's shocked right now what ICE is doing. They've been doing this since I started in 1984. They've been doing this for decades, but because the last 4 years they couldn't enforce the law, now we're back to enforcing law, everybody's having a fit. They're doing the right thing. They're making this country safe again every day. One more question, I gotta go.
Coming up with a program to help farmers who are hurting from the immigration enforcement. Do you have a update on where that stands?
I'm not going to get ahead of the president on that. There's discussions ongoing. I'll leave it at that. But the president has promised there will be no amnesty.
Mr. Homan, are you meeting that goal that the administration has set of deporting out of the country those individuals in the country illegally of a certain number per day or a certain number per month? Are you meeting the administration's set goals? And what is that number that you see, sir?
I don't have a goal.
You have no, the administration is
I don't have a goal. I want ICE out there every day with their partners, FBI, DEA, and ATF, to seek every criminal alien threat, every national security threat. I'll be happy when every illegal alien criminal and every illegal alien terrorist threat is removed from this country. That's when I'll be happy.
Was there never a goal of 3,000 a day? Does that sound right to you?
3,000 a day. People keep bringing up 3,000 a day. Let me make something clear. You'd have to arrest 7,000 people a day. 7,000 people a day just to remove the people that Joe Biden let in the country. 3,000 is not unreasonable at all, considering what the Biden administration did for 4 years. Do the math. 7,000 a day for the rest of this administration just to remove the people they let in. Not even talking about the 15 million that are already here. Again, President Trump promised American people to make this country safer. I want you guys, if you leave with anything, leave with this. The data proves the majority of people ICE are arresting are criminal and public safety threats. We're taking them off the street. We're removing them from this country. So every day, this country gets a little bit safer because of President Trump sitting in the Oval Office, giving ICE and Border Patrol the authority to enforce the law and uphold the oath they took to defend this nation. That's it.
Thank you.
All right, you're watching Border Czar Tom Homan walk off after speaking to the press for about 10 minutes or so. He's going to be heading into the White House, presumably meeting with President Trump. David, I think he said the big takeaway here is that the data proves that the majority of people being arrested are criminals and people who are public threats to the United States. And as I listened to him, I seem to kind of get this impression that he's a little frustrated at the questions he continues to get and how the media is covering all of this and portraying the illegal immigration roundups and efforts from the Trump administration.
No, I picked up on that too as well. He's frustrated because they are the same questions. And so maybe instead of Tom Homan, we can just say broken record player because he just feels like he's saying the same thing over and over again. But they just want to go with their narrative, which is, illegal immigrants, which of course they call immigrants, the liberals call immigrants, but illegal immigrants who have done nothing wrong are just randomly being picked up at their home. It's just not true. It's just not true. Any illegal immigrants that have not committed crimes, if they're getting picked up or when they're getting picked up because they're around that type of activity, Dr. G. We got a lot more to say about it.
Fun thing, this man is living his dream.
He's
living his dream. I had an opportunity to just have a super casual couple of lunches with him, just hanging out in Palm Beach. He was telling me all of his dreams and all the things he wanted to do, and he is living his dream. And what an incredible dream it is. The thing that struck me so much was those 3,000, that number of 3,000 a day. Isn't that too many? He's like, no, Biden let 7,000 a day in. Boom. Yeah, I have to say goodbye. War Room is next. The show is